Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to council for April 7th, 2026. Before we start, because it's funeral this afternoon, I intend to see the council adjourns about 11:45 or 10 to 12. So it's time for a quick lunch, and then anyone who wants to go to the funeral will have an opportunity to do so. Having said that, need a motion to accept the agenda. Moved by White, seconded by Gillis. Any additions or deletions? Being none, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Any declaration of any interest in general nature thereof? Being none, the minutes of the previous meeting at March 17th, we have mover and seconded, moved by Gittman, seconded by Becker. Any errors or omissions from the minutes? Councillor West, please.
Yes, I was not present at that meeting on the 17th of March.
Sorry, I'll correct that.
Any other corrections? Seeing none, then the minutes as amended, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Business arising from the minutes, CRO 9, Denny, any comments?
To the mayor council, no comments to add. I'm happy to answer questions if you have any.
Any questions from council on this? Seeing none, we have a motion into receive the report, moved by Gilbert, second by Wilker. Result, Council Johnson took the power to report CRO in 2026 and rather than minutes of March 17th, 2026, information, any resolution. Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Now, quarter division with the 905. Okay, so we got to wait till 905. Then we're going to move to staff reports, treasurer's report for 2026. And Brooke, you're on, please.
This report is before council today for my request for sanitary board or the township to act as their trustee for the care maintenance funds while they maintain control over the operating. Reason being, Scotia Trust has given notice to over 300 clients of theirs. So if the township, the township does currently act as a trustee only for the Mount Elgin and Delmar sanitaries. Moving forward with this role, staff will work with the board members and the VAO to complete the process.
Okay, any questions or comments? Seeing none, and the recommendation was to move forward. Brooke, you're willing to take it on?
Yes.
Okay. Direction from council, Councilor
Move to support.
Second. Moved by Given second by figure result, council township took the drop from June 4th year. 2026, request the township to act custody for growth temporary commission for the council authorized staff to initiate the application process to become the trustee for growth temporary care and maintenance funds. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, we've got time for purchase of a new wood chipper. Adam, please, WD5 2025. Anything you wanted to add to that?
Nothing to add to that other than you'll see in the report that we are over budget for $2,882 and I intend to fund that out of the quick sir.
Okay. Any questions on this report? No, sir, you don't.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What's the expected return on the old unit?
We don't really know. I budgeted 5,000 in the budget. So we'll put that on the deal with the friends. It's an old 95, so she's where
No, it's open 30 years.
it's a 95, so yeah.
Okay. I remember when we bought it. So, question on this report. Recommendation is to approve the purchase. Do we have a mover for that? Moved by Gillis, second by Booker, result, council township took the property report WD 502026. Purchase the new wood chippers information and further the council approves the purchase of one new Vermeer wood chipper for the purchase price of $81,449.04 plus the factors through LAS contract number 010925. Any discussion? Councilor Dickman.
Just through you, what would the price have been if we hadn't gone through Canadian?
That I'm not sure what the discounts are, would assume around 10%.
Okay, any other questions? Being none, all those in favor? Opposed, that carried. Now back to the court of revision. And, Councillor Wood, you're the chair of that court of revision.
I am.
Oh, we need to reset the court of revision, moved by Way, second by Gillis. Any discussion, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. And now we're in the court of revision, Councillor Way, please.
Okay, this is quarter revision for Deer Creek Drain, section 4 and section 78. Call a meeting to order at 9:05. Approval of the agenda moved by Jim, seconded by Paul. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Confirmation of assessment. We have no verbal or written appeals received by the clerk this time. No members of the public have registered to speak at the court of revision at this time. Is there anyone from the public wishing to appeal the engineer's assessment on this drain? None? Be it resolved that the Court of Revision hereby confirms the assessment prepared by Street Associates and dated January 20th, 2026 regarding the Deer Creek Drain Section 4 and Section 78 report in accordance with the Drainage Act, RSO 1990, Chapter D17. Moved by
Second.
Paul. Second by June. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Adjournment. Result of the Court of Revision held on April 7th, 2026 be now adjourned at 9:07. Moved by Jim. Seconded by Paul. Okay. Meeting adjourned.
Okay, we're back, council, we're on the, WD 6/2026. This is the asphalt tender. Do you have any comments?
Nothing to add, this is, being recommended for permanent paving in Woodstock. We've worked with them in the past, did excellent work, and that's my recommendation to accept this proposal.
Any questions from council? Hearing none, we have a motion then. Moved by Yitman, second by Booker, resolved council. For WD 6/2026 asphalt tender results of information, further council approved the tender bid of $662,834.60 plus proposed taxes from permanent paving to perform the work outlined in the approved tender. Any discussion? Councilor Booker.
Adam, is that 2 lifts that they're gonna put on?
Mount Logan Road will have 2 lifts from the tracks to just past the elevator, since that's a full load road, everything else is a single lift, 75 mil.
Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, that carried. We get time to be, okay, so CO 18, we'll do the museum barn conversion project. Please.
Thank you, Mayor Mayberry. This report is being brought forward today for information purposes only to provide council with an update on the museum barn conversion project. As outlined in the report, there have been some changes to the project scope related to building code requirements, which have resulted in increased estimated costs. At this stage, the amounts that are provided within the report are order of magnitude estimates, and we will have more precise figures once the project has been tendered. Staff will be providing a follow-up report to council once the project has been tendered for consideration and formal approval. I'd like to note that we have recently become aware that the timeline for completion of the project in relation to the ISIP funding has been extended to March 2028. We originally thought that it was spring of 2027, which does provide some additional flexibility in there in terms of timing. At this point, we're not sure what would happen if council were to decide not to proceed with this project in terms of the ISIP funding, whether we would still receive or have to pay back any of the funding that's already been received. But there have been some I guess I would say pretty substantial changes to what the township's estimated portion of the work is gonna be. We originally thought that was gonna be about $70,000, and now the township's is close to, it's a little bit over $100,000. So I just wanted to make council aware of these changes, so that once the project is tendered and it comes back to council, there aren't too many surprises. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have at this time. As I mentioned, this is for information only at this point, and we will be providing an updated report once the project has been tendered and we have more accurate figures.
Good, any questions on this report? Councilor Perry?
I wonder why this is not a budget item for next year. This is not in the budget, this extra money is not in a 26-27 budget. So we've gotta find the extra money. Not make it a budget item for next year.
It was included in the museum's budget for this year, and our share was proposed to be funded from the recreation reserve.
But the extra money we're talking about,
That's right.
so where will it come from?
If we were to proceed this year, we'd likely be recommending that it also come from the recreation reserve. Unless it is put off till 2027.
Any other questions? Councilor Gillis?
Just a comment, based on this and working at the museum. I think the only thing to note is, when saying the scope has changed, I think the scope has remained the same. Unclarity from the engineer about exactly what was wanted. I think, we've learned a lot from, this process and understand, when other people come in, wanting building projects and how, sometimes they get frustrated in how it goes. Changing the status of building, to assembly was never mentioned to us before in any of these planning consultations, which changes some requirements, obviously some costs. So we are a little frustrated that, we weren't able to accurately, present these numbers for our budget. Some of these things kind of come in when they finally realized exactly what we were asking of them. We thought we were pretty clear, right from the beginning. But obviously when, it gets close to the end, you narrow it down, and this is where we're at. I do agree that here of moving forward with the tendering and possibly the idea of, phasing in, sections if we can, based on that. I think we've moved forward enough now that, we can still proceed with this project.
Good. Any other comments or questions? So, are we prepared to, receive the recommendations from staff? The mover. Moved by Gillis, seconded by Wade. Result, Council Township Self-Office. So, Barn converted project information further to staff and director. Report back to council following the complete tender process with updated project costs and recommendations from next steps. Any discussion? If none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Move now to the public meeting for two zone changes. I can just declare we're going into a public meeting, so I will. And the first one is for Hebert, I believe. And see here, or a representative, or okay, we want to come up with the table, explain the process, and since this is the identical process for both, I'll only do it once. In the process, the planner will give us a report on the application and the recommendations. Then council has an opportunity to ask any questions for clarification. Then we ask anyone in the audience if they want to speak in favor or opposed. After that, council will have an opportunity to deliberate further on the issue and make any decision. So we start with Laurel Snyder, the presenter or the planner, doing the first application, ZN 4.509 from Jacob Height. Laurel, please.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Council and members and staff. So this application for zone change is to rezone the subject property from general agricultural zone to special zone. to facilitate the development of an existing undersized A2 parcel for a dwelling and the related infrastructure, so the related septic system. The applicant has also requested a special provision to permit a single detached dwelling not associated with an agricultural use. So A2 properties typically have an agricultural use. However, this is a very undersized A2 parcel. To recognize a frontage of 90 meters where a minimum of 100 meters is required. And to permit a lot area of 2.4 hectares where a minimum of 30 hectares is required for an A2 parcel. So again, this is an undersized A2 parcel. The existing zone, as I mentioned, is general agricultural. The designation is agricultural reserve. The property is rectangular in shape. And my computer's shutting down. 2.44 hectares in area with frontage on Hawkins Road. It's located on the south side of Hawkins Road between Culloden Line and Pigram Line. The property does not contain any structures, however, there are remnants of foundations of previous structures. My computer just shut down. Okay. I will switch to my report here. So there are remnants of previous structures. I apologize, everyone. There we go. That's horrible. The property does contain significant woodlands and the A.M. Smith Municipal Drain does run along the westerly and southerly border of the property, as you can see, hopefully on the map up there and the maps on your screen. To support the proposal, the applicant did submit a planning justification report, environmental impact study, a tree inventory report, and boundary topographic survey, and a conceptual plan illustrating the proposed location of the driveway, home, and septic bed. So they did submit a substantial amount of work to support this proposal. Surrounding land uses include a non-farm residential property to the east containing a single detached dwelling, and agricultural properties to the north, south, and west are zoned agricultural A2. In terms of circulation, as you know, we circulate all planning applications to agencies and departments and also to the public. So the staff comment from building and drainage were that the structure would have to be set back 30 meters from the top of the bank from the A.M. Smith drain. The Catfish Creek conservation approval is required for the location of the new septic system and the new dwelling. And an exemption from the county woodlands bylaw is required. And these comments were forwarded to the applicant. In terms of public comments, we did not receive any comments or questions from the public. And my computer is taking another break. So in terms of analysis, I did review the policies in the provincial planning statement, that specifically the natural heritage and the agricultural policies. I reviewed the agricultural policies and the specific policies regarding existing undersized agricultural lots in the official plan. So for this type of lot, the official plan does set out development criteria for establishing a dwelling or agricultural buildings and structures. And they are frontage on a public road, which is maintained all year. That the property is the minimum size to accommodate the dwelling, amenity area, driveway, and on-site water and sewage services. And that this area shall not exceed 0.4 hectares. So just the area with the house and the driveway and sewage system. That we are minimizing the loss of tillable agricultural land and impacts on existing and future agricultural uses. That it complies with minimum distance separation 1 requirements. And where development is proposed within or adjacent natural heritage features, it's supported by an environmental impact study. So I reviewed the documentation submitted by the applicant to support the proposal and the peer review of the environmental impact study. The peer review did note that the proposed development would not introduce, and the EIS noted that the development would not introduce any net negative impacts on the natural features or functions of the property if the recommendations of the EIS are implemented. I noted that policy 3.2.6.5 in the OP requires that any proposed development results in net environmental gain to mitigate any negative impacts of a development. So in this case, I'm recommending that the applicant also submit a landscape plan for restoration work with securities for the implementation of restoration work to illustrate net environmental gain. So in addition to implementing the recommendations of the EIS, I'm recommending that we add a landscape plan just to provide that net environmental gain that the official plan calls for when you're developing within or near significant natural features. Overall, staff are of the opinion that the proposal to rezone the lands from general agricultural to special general agricultural is consistent with policy direction of the PPS. Does maintain the intent of the official plan with respect to undersized agricultural parcels and non-farm rural residential development in agricultural areas. I recommend that it be approved in principle. The amending bylaw is not before you today, will be prepared when the applicant has confirmed the distances from lot lines, confirm the extent of the building envelope. The reason I'm asking for this is the environmental impact study. And the planning justification report did identify a specific building envelope for the proposed development. The EIS and the planning justification report were basically based on those two documents. So our recommendation is consistent with that. We're looking at where they're proposing to do the development, and the amending bylaw would recommend that the building envelope is kept within what they are recommending in terms of where the building would go. So my computer's just done, so just gonna read my report. The recommended bylaw would be to approve this in principle. Recommended bylaw would identify the building envelope, would also be a holding zone, which would ensure that the recommendations of the environmental impact study and the landscape plan are implemented as part of the development. Thank you. I apologize for the computer issues. If there are any questions for clarification, I'm happy to answer.
Okay, so question for clarification, anyone, Counselor Booker, please.
Through you to Laurel, a parcel this size, and I know the parcel. Why wouldn't we go to a rural residential designation instead of a special general agricultural?
That's a very good question. The applicant can probably address that as well. That would require more planning. It would probably require official plan amendment as well. So this is probably the most efficient way to propose what they are proposing.
Yeah, because I know that lot is totally tree covered.
Yeah.
And so therefore, to be still agriculture, you would have had to remove all those trees to make it tillable. So to me, it made more sense to be rural residential.
Through Mary Avery, that's not what the applicant requested, and we do agree that amending the A2 property is the appropriate approach in this case. So agriculture could also include harvesting of timber as well. It's not always just tillable crops, so it could, it could include that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for clarification? Seeing none, so now it's up to the applicant, Laurel, I believe, Laura, please.
Yes, that's correct.
Go ahead, Laura, any comments you want to make on behalf of the application?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Mayor Mayberry and members of council, members of the public and staff. My name is Laura Jameson. I'm a senior planner with Olympic Preamble Limited here on behalf of Jacob Hebert, the applicant and landowner. I'd just like to take a moment to thank Laurel for her work on this file. She's been very responsive, provided us with all relevant information and correspondence. So it's been really a smooth process from application submission to being before you today. We have reviewed Laurel's report, and we are in agreement with the recommendation to approve the requested zoning bylaw amendment to permit the development of a single detached dwelling on these lands. However, we respectfully disagree with the proposal to rezone only a portion of the subject lands to permit the development of the dwelling. In our opinion, the subject lands have a number of constraints, including but not limited to
the fact that they are a significant woodlot, and we do have to stay a minimum of 30 meters from the AM drain that runs along the eastern or westerly portion of the property. As we were reviewing the subject lands, it was our opinion that, the proposed location for the dwelling would be best suited in the existing cleared area where there's an existing foundation from a previous structure. However, the EIS peer reviewer provided a different opinion, noting that, the development may have less impact closer to the road. And they identified, an alternative location where historically a single detached dwelling had been built. In our opinion, we would prefer to have the flexibility to do further review to determine the absolute best location for the dwelling to not only minimize impacts to the significant woodland, but also to make sure that the proposed development is in fact feasible for our client. We also do disagree with the recommendation for a holding provision specifically for the recommendations of the EIS to be implemented. Our reasoning for that is because the recommendations of the EIS do include specific construction timing windows that are rather arbitrary, and it would be difficult for us to put forward a plan or some way of ensuring that those recommendations will be met before a building permit could be pulled. So in our opinion, that is too arbitrary and vague for the applicant. That being said, again, we do still believe that this is an appropriate use of the land. The single detached dwelling is not going to have significant impacts on the woodlot. And there is an opportunity as well, as Laurel mentioned, for enhancement, including potential removal of invasive species to have an overall net positive impact on the woodlot as construction and development occur. Thank you very much for your time. I'm here to answer any other questions that you may have.
Okay. We'll get back to you in just a minute. Anyone in the public want to speak in favor of the application? Anyone in the public want to speak opposed to this application? We're back to council. Questions from council? No questions on this? I'd like to start then. Laura, the idea that you do an EIS that suggests one thing and you're saying that the recommendations you'd like to change them. And I'm just wondering what was the point of doing it if we're not going to follow the recommendations of the environmental impact study?
So the recommendations outline where our consultant believes the ideal optimal location for the dwelling to be. We went through a process with a peer reviewer, so an alternative firm had gone out to the site. They've done a cursory review and some historic review of the subject lands as well. And they provided an alternative location that they believed would be better. The sticking point for us is that we don't have house plans drawn up at this time. The landowner wanted to ensure that they would be permitted to build the single detached dwelling on the subject lands prior to undertaking that process. And the location that we had reviewed and selected among our team was utilizing the cleared area with an existing foundation. That foundation is there today where the existing or the previous dwelling's foundation is not, because it was determined to be too costly to remove at the time. And we would prefer not to lock our client into that location, given that it could be, again, very costly to remove the existing foundation to construct the actual single side dwelling that we're proposing.
Any other questions? Councilor Yetman.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. So am I like to understand then that there's two separate sets of foundations on this property, one in a cleared area and one in a more treed area where the residents used to be?
Through the mayor, there is no foundation where the dwelling, the historic dwelling was. There is a foundation in the central cleared area where I'm assuming it was a barn had been located previously. And that's where, because there was limited tree cover, where we proposed the dwelling to be located. The peer reviewer of the EIS has strongly recommended that we locate the dwelling closer to the road, as there would be less, there wouldn't be that gap created in the rest of the parcel. The existing foundation could function as it had been, and there would be additional continuity, I believe, is what the peer reviewer was recommending.
Other questions? Laurel, any comments you want to make on the size of the area to be rezoned?
Thank you, through you, Mayor Mayberry to council, and, Laura, just a point of clarification that the intent, I don't believe the intent, of not having a holding provision was to not do the recommendations of the EIS. I believe that Laura Jameson was saying that regardless, the, recommendations of the EIS will be implemented. It's just whether or not we put a holding, provision on it as well, so. I have no other comments or recommendation is as it is. Laura and I have had many discussions, and it is very common that planners have different opinions.
But also in the recommendation, the EIF is around the construction schedule and timing of that.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
I think I heard Laura say that the EIS also recommended certain construction period
That's correct,
timing.
yes.
Is that upheld or not?
The construction schedule, I'm sorry.
The timing of it. When they can build or not build?
Oh, in terms of,
Go ahead.
I think you're asking if you're going to follow those construction periods that are outlined within the EIS, those conditions.
Yes, for clarification, and I apologize, I maybe misunderstood your question initially. Yes, the recommendations of the EIS will be followed. Like I said previously, there were recommendations for erosion and sediment control fencing. There were construction timing recommendations and vegetation removal timing recommendations for periods where no removals were to occur, to ensure that there would be no impacts to the function of the woodlot during those specific times. Our intention is, as Laurel said, to follow the recommendations of the EIS. What I was getting at was that these timelines for construction, I'll back up maybe a little bit. In order to get a building permit, we would have to remove the holding provision if it was implemented. We could not remove the holding provision without demonstrating that the recommendations had been followed. But given that the timing for those, some of those items is arbitrary, it would be more difficult for us to come up with a tangible way to prove that the recommendations of the EIS have been followed. If I may, an alternative would be to have recommendations, or maybe a holding provision for, specifically erosion and sediment control to ensure that any construction impacts do not, have any effect on the surrounding natural heritage features. That is built into the recommendations of the EIS already, and there is like a tangible way to confirm that the erosion and sediment control fencing has been implemented in accordance with the recommendations of the EIS, which could satisfy council and staff that the recommendations are being followed.
And Laurel, any comment on that?
Thank you, through your Mayor Mayberry. With respect to your other question in terms of the building envelope, staff is aware that there are other potential building sites on the property. Our goal, consistent with the official plan and PBS, is to minimize the impact on the significant woodlots. We do understand that more work is possibly required to determine that. So we're trying to remain as flexible as possible within the policies that we have. In terms of the recommendation to structure the recommendation to the holding provision be limited, staff would support that. So approval in principle to come back with a bylaw that could be structured to recognize the building schedule.
Any other questions from council? Not seeing the, just wondering, any problem with the applicant with, the landscape, aspect that Laurel talked about? I mean, having a landscaping plan?
Through you, Mayor, no, there are no issues with providing the landscape plan.
Anything else from council then? I'm just wondering how that impacts the recommendation, Laurel?
Through you, Mayor Mayberry,
Is the recommendation as is, all right, understanding, that the holding pattern would be, subject to, your consideration and just looking for council's direction too.
through you, Mayor Mayberry, the current recommendation does specify that it's a portion of the lands are rezoned. The applicant, Laura Jameson, is suggesting that be removed. They would like the entire lot rezoned, special A2, special general agricultural. Staff is recommending that it's a portion of it.
Right, that was the other one
Yeah.
over here. Okay, so, what's the answer to that? I'm looking to council, the whole thing or the portion is recommended? Council, you have that? I'd be willing to support the whole thing. Anyone else? Okay, then that's the whole thing that's on the table for the approval in principle. Daniel, any comments from building or drainage on this property?
No, not really. I feel like it's a buildable lot for sure. We actually did some brushing on the A.M. Smith drain and worked it from the opposite side. The drain kind of runs right along the west of the property line. We worked it from the west, so really we don't, the setback, even if the setback was reduced a bit from our 100-foot setback for top of bank, it still wouldn't be an issue because we worked it from the other side. So no, I don't have any concern.
Okay.
No, so we'll get on my end.
So, we're gonna pass the zoning bylaw now? No, we're gonna pass it once, so then the other one.
There's no bylaw.
Right, there's a recommendation. Okay, so, we do that in public meeting.
There's no bylaw for this.
No. I know, the recommendation here.
Yep.
Do we have a mover and seconder for the recommendation to, rezone the whole property, with the, amended holding part, portion? They moved by Yitma, seconded by Tucker. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, opposed, that's carried. Okay, so that's not the bylaw, as you well know, Laura. We'll see that sometime shortly, I expect, but okay. Thanks, Laura. Second application this morning is for a zone change for Rob Lee Farms. Carol's on the table, please. A somewhat similar process, in fact, it's going to be the same process as what you just observed, and, we'll get right at it. Laurel, go ahead, this is application dead and for 2550, the Robert Farm.
Thank you, Mayor Mayberry and members of council, staff and members of the public. This application is to rezone the lot to be severed and lot to be retained through consent file B 2526-4 as a condition of the consent. So as council may be aware, when a consent or a severance happens, there are always conditions that applicants have to fulfill before those new properties are actually created. One of the conditions is always rezoning those lots, so the lot to be severed and the lot to be retained to make sure that the zoning fits the intended use of the new lots. So the lot to be retained is to be rezoned from general agricultural zone to special general agricultural zone with special provision for a reduced lot depth of 60 meters and to add group home as a permitted use. So that is the small lot that has a, rezone it to rural residential zone, not A2 zone. That already has a dwelling on the property. The lot to be severed, so the larger portion, the agricultural portion, is to be rezoned from general agricultural zone to special general agricultural zone. And there will be a special provision on that to limit residential uses to only one single detached dwelling. The reason for that, and we do that for all, when there's a severance where people declare that there's a surplus residential dwelling, the larger portion of farmland that is severed off, we put a special provision on there that says no more residential dwellings than what you already have, because you've told us through the severance that you don't require an additional residential dwelling, so we put a special provision limiting that. And my computer just broke again. So as with all applications, we reviewed the provincial planning statement and the official plan and the zoning bylaw. The subject lands are within the agricultural reserve in the township of Southwest Oxford land use plan as contained in the official plan. The agricultural reserve does allow for agricultural uses, and the lot to be severed is consistent with the lot area required for agricultural land. Section 3.1.5.2 in the official plan does allow for severance of surplus dwellings, so this application is consistent with the official plan that permits those severances. In terms of the zoning bylaw, both properties are currently zoned general agricultural zone in the township of Southwest Oxford bylaw. The A2 zone requires a maximum lot area of 30 hectares and a minimum frontage of 100 meters. The lot to be severed, so the larger parcel would be approximately 47.6 hectares, so 117 acres, with frontage of approximately 596 meters on Farm Road. So that property meets the intent and the provisions required in the zoning bylaw. The lot to be retained is proposed for non-farm rural residential uses and will be the rezoning is to recognize those uses. The RR zone does permit residential uses, including single detached dwelling. It requires a minimum lot area of 2,800 square meters, a minimum frontage of 35 meters, and minimum lot depth of 80 meters. As part of the severance, the applicants did note that the lot to be severed would have a reduced lot depth of 60 meters. This is because the existing farm buildings on the lot to be retained, the larger farm parcel, where they were on the lot required that to keep them as part of the agricultural parcel, you needed a shorter lot depth in order to maintain the integrity of that other lot. So the lot to be retained does exceed the area required for rural residential lots. It meets the requirement for frontage. It is reduced in terms of lot depth. Staff is supportive of this lot size just because it is greater in area than what's required. Staff is supportive of the reduced lot depth, I mean. The applicant has also requested a special provision to permit a group home as a permitted use on the property. I note that group home is already permitted in the general agricultural zone, so A2. Limited agricultural zone, so A1, R1, which is residential type 1 use, and institutional zone. So group home is a permitted use as of right in those zones already. Township of Southwest Oxford defines group home as a single housekeeping unit in a single detached dwelling in which 3 to 10 persons, excluding supervisory staff, live under supervision consistent with the needs of its residents. So in this case, Dan and the Niels, I believe, investigated, looked at the septic system on this lot, and the way it's sized, it can support 4 bedrooms, period. So regardless if it's a single detached house being used for residential purposes, or it's being used for group home purposes, the septic system can only support 4 bedrooms. So if people wanted to add more bedrooms to that dwelling, an upgrade to the septic system would be required. There's no issue with the septic system at all. It's just we, as part of investigating whether group home use could be supported on that, we needed to understand the scope of what could be supported. So a maximum of 4 bedrooms can be supported on that property. So the application was, in terms of group home as well, they are licensed under provincial legislation. The township does not provide licenses, the county does not provide licenses. So there is quite a process to establishing a group home. So that it involves obtaining a license. There are regular checks in terms of to ensure that they're meeting the regulations. So that establishing the permission for the use is only the first step in this. As with all applications, this application was circulated to public agencies and different departments. We did receive comments from Southwest Oxford Building and Southwest Oxford Septic Inspector. And again, that a maximum of 4 bedrooms could be in a group home or a detached residential dwelling at this location. There were no other comments received from agencies regarding this. Notice of complete application and public meeting were circulated on February 5th and March 18th. To inform the public, there is also a public notice sign erected on the property, as with all applications. So at the time I was writing this report, I had received questions from 3 members of the public, so 2 phone calls and an email, asking questions about what a group home is, and all 3 were in opposition to establishing this use. The reasoning I believe is that it's too far from services to accommodate the use. And it also did not add to the existing character of the neighborhood. I did respond and let them know that group home as a use is already permitted in rural and settlement and village areas within the township. So we reviewed this application under the policy direction of the provincial planning statement and the official plan. Staff is in support of the application and our recommendation and bylaw are attached for you. We are recommending everyone because the application does meet all the criteria in the provincial planning statement, the official plan, and the zoning bylaw. The attached zoning bylaw does put a cap on the number of bedrooms permitted in a group home use if council is for this project. And I'm happy to answer any questions. I apologize for the technical glitch today.
Okay, so a couple things. First of all, we have before we get to that, is there any questions from council on this application? If it's one, rural, that would be, you say 4 bedrooms, how many people can you have in a bedroom?
I will ask her, through you, Mayor Mayberry, I'll ask her building. Thank you.
So it could be up to 8 people. And is that by decree, like a legislation, or is that?
That-
2 bunk beds in a room, could I ask what people are?
Well, that's how they base the flow off of it for septic design and
So. I think, we heard that you have up to 10 people in a, group home.
Through you, Mayor Mayberry, that is correct, 3 to 10 people, yeah. Beyond 10 people, it moves any type of facility into a different category, it would be some sort of care.
Okay, any other questions? You're gonna read this letter then, and then we'll get to the public.
To the Mayor and Council, a letter was received from a number of residents, in the area that were circulated on the notice. So Mary Margaret Ella, Charles and Kim Cowell, George Basket, Michael Thurston, and Alan and Carol Cowell all submitted a joint letter that states, on behalf of the residents, we are writing in response to a letter of notice we received in the mail regarding the zoning file ZN 4-25-15 for Robley Farms Limited, in association with consent file B 25-46-4. We want to express our thoughts for a group home being allocated to the retained lot. We recommend this request be denied as the following concerns for this facility in our neighborhood. Property values will be impacted, safety and well-being of the community will be challenged, and will the management of any organization be properly monitored, along with complex needs which could lead numerous situations that the community isn't expecting. We recognize that group homes can play a crucial role in supporting those in need, but we believe this particular area may not be the most suitable choice.
Okay. All right, we're now down to the applicants, go ahead, please.
Good morning all. Gord Cowell, Kelly Cowell, representing Robley Farms. I think Laurel has laid everything out as well as I can ever anticipate to do it. So I think we can just go forward with any questions.
Okay. Anyone in the audience want to speak in favor of the application? Anyone in the audience want to speak opposed to the application? Mr. Franklin, do you want to ask some questions?
It's kind of a.
Go ahead, come on up. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Billy.
Morning, you have multiple questions, go ahead and ask.
Well, I don't know, it's gonna be a couple, but,
Oh.
I'm sorry, yeah, good morning, my name's Jeff Franklin, and I'm at 5641-99 Carn Road, Laurel. And Denny have been of service to me over the last, few months on this. I was kind of late to the dance, going back to the first letter that went out to the land committee. Denny got me up board on how this was all laid out and got myself involved in the process. During that time, I received the letters that were sent out for December 4 meeting at the land division meeting. And then the mapping, that is for the severance and the different items going on. By being at that address, I'm the closest neighbor possible to the land that's to be severed at 564211 Carn Road. So I'd be most impacted of the rest of the neighbors in that area. So am I opposed? Am I against? It's a combination of a lot of actions here. I heard Laurel speak about, and then the person I don't know who was speaking about the demographics of the septic system, right? So I think I heard from that to start there. If you had 10 people, that would include staff. Would that not, that you think,
would include staff.
that includes staff?
Yeah.
So that would maximize or take over the limits of that septic system on a regular basis. If you had 8 people, like Mayor Mayberry said, you have 8 people living there, but then you have staff that would be on top of that, and you would have constant use on a daily basis of 10 or more people, correct?
So for each bedroom, it would be 2 people,
Right.
So
8 people,
staff, everyone in the house, all together, so.
Right.
So if it's 4 bedroom, it's 8 people, that's what the system's designed for. So I don't know.
yeah, but 8, I agree, 8 people living there.
Yes.
Right, if we're talking about the group home, I'll get to that point in a minute. But if you have 8 people living there 24/7, 365 days a year, and additionally you have staff. that's gonna increase the volume of usage of that septic system. Am I correct in that comment?
Yes.
Okay, all right, no, thanks. I'm not gonna try anything else. I just wanted to correct the answer for that. Regards to the group home, having time and then through this process, going to the land council meeting. At that time, I was in talks with the Rodley Farms, Gordon Kelly, about potentially purchasing that property at 1.5 to be separate. Doing my education and homework on this, and then the different things that come up. Not knowing what they want to reclassify it as is the Ag 2, correct? And they want to do rural residential special. Those things have different abbreviations and meanings to them. So I'll start with the group home, going back to that. The group home, if you research group home, that can lead up to housing parolee people. People that are coming from the law, that have gone through the criminal system, have been released to the community of whatever they've done in the system. And that has then those type of people, using that word loosely, people involved in that situation would be in those houses. So when you look up Oxford County, Ontario, and you look at group home, it states correctional service parolees. So that is a concern, unknown to that letter that was read to the other people of the area. That is a concern from my position on the property where I live. If I'm going to be there another 30 years, that would make me 87, so better play a lotto ticket. But anyways, my point is that I don't support the group home process. That's too wide range for group home in the application. It does not support where I like to go with that and be in my community and my neighborhood for the value of my home. Yes, that's part of it, but just for the well-being of my daughter and I. Second is the question I have about boundaries. So the boundaries, when you sever a property, if somebody can answer yes, when you sever or you're gonna sever a property, do roads have any of the boundary or notification of the severance? And the distance of the notifications? And somebody help me with those questions. So Carn Road, can people north or south in the boundary limits be notified or not notified of these meetings?
Laura, do you want to just answer that?
Yep, through you, Mayor Barry, the notification, Jeff, is a radius from the property, so it would be a certain distance around the property,
Correct,
yes.
okay.
So wherever that radius falls,
Right.
the
What is
owners,
the correct radius? I've been given 60 meters and 120 meters.
I will check for you
Right.
and double check, because it depends on the application.
60 meters for consent to sever, 120 meters for zoning.
So
So in this case, 120 meters.
No, yes, for
Yes.
the zone, yeah.
So in the application, it's only ever stated 60 meters.
That was consent application.
Right, okay, thank you. Thanks for clarifying that. So the people, so has everybody been properly notified of this?
Through you, Mayor Mayberry, yes, by provincial legislation, we are required to do certain things to notify people. One is to send out a notice, one is that the owner of the property must erect a sign
Right.
within a certain time frame of the meeting, and then they provide proof to us that they've put up the sign. We also post on our website, the county website and the township website, by provincial legislation, we are required to follow very strict notice.
Fair enough.
And if we do not, that,
Oh, no, that's very fair. So my question to you then, Laurel, and that since you answered that. So there's 2 signs posted for the December 4 meeting and the April 7th, 3, where's the other one? Sorry. It is there?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Answer, the question's answered. Thank you very much. So going back to the special ag. When you go to special ag. And that's ag 2, am I correct with that? Ag 2 special. So when you research that definition, you can get into different varieties of people that could purchase land on that right in the future. And I don't know what the acreage would be, I don't know what the dimensions would be, but one is an arboratory, which is slaughterhouse, which concerns slaughterhouse plus retail. So you could have the butcher shop, the butcher that kills shop there, and you can also have people selling the meats there on a retail basis. The other one is, pet therapy farms, right? And that kind of coincides with turning this 1.5 acres into a non-farm ag business. So you've got a couple connecting limit, like, connections here that are not making sense to me. So I don't think, and then in the area that I live on, east or west of me, that is 39 acres owned by Rodman Farms, east and west and north of me. And I think anybody in this room would want a slaughterhouse, potentially it could be bought by land and erected there. Because that state's right in Oxford County, Ontario. Explanations of what you can put on a special ag two area.
But you could do that already. You can on ag land,
Through you, Mayor Mayberry, an abattoir is not a permitted use in the A2 zone. I don't see it. Animal kennel, communication structure, conservation project, converted dwelling, regulated farm, garden suite, group home, home occupation, farm, oil or gas well, composting facility, private airstrip, public use, veggie, seasonal fruit stand, topsoil or peat extraction, and the wayside sand and gravel. I do not see abattoir as a permitted use in A2.
Julie says it's probably another application that requested that.
When you read through, like, if you're reading through the zoning provisions for A2, eventually towards the end, you get into different special provisions. And so I wonder if you were looking at a special provision that was applied specifically to another property where that use was allowed. But it's not generally allowed in the A2 zone.
Well, I guess my only research, thank you, but my only research I could do on my layman's level, right? I'm not doing this every day. When I Googled and researched it, I researched under Oxford County, Ontario. Special General Agricultural Zone A2 SP.
Yeah.
And it states, purpose to allow specialized uses such as abattoirs with accessory retail, pet therapy farms, and additional residential uses that are not typically warranted in the standard A2 zoning. So, I mean, I don't know if that has deal with it. I mean, I want to let you know, this is nothing against Gord and Kelly. This is the preservation of my property that I pay tax on. So I just want to make sure that where this is going, I'm not here for malice. I'm here to find facts because. I don't
Okay,
do
let's
this.
let Laurel comment then on the abattoir.
Yep, through you, Mayor Mayberry. So Jeff, it's a great question. So the special provisions, people have to request a special provision for their specific property. So if somebody requests a abattoir, for example, and council deems that appropriate for that property, that provision only applies to that property. It doesn't apply to all A2 special properties. So Gordon Kelly are asking for a special provision to permit a reduced lot depth of 60 meters. And a special provision to permit a group home use on the property. So those two things would, if council approves that, would only apply to that property. It would not apply to all.
But are we not rezoning, are we not asking for a rezone on the land to be retained plus the land being separate?
That's right. So the land to be the larger agricultural property,
Right.
the A2 special, the special is to limit the number of residential dwellings on that property. So they can do everything in the A2 list. And they can only have one residential dwelling. There are no other special provisions that they are requesting for that property.
Okay, fair enough, very good point, and I appreciate your explanation, but let's say in 20 years, Gordon and Kelly. They're living wherever they want to live for the rest of their lives.
It'll be less than 20 years.
You told me this, right? You told me this, but my point is, 5-10 years they sell. And some conglomerate of Toronto or wherever comes in and buys their 117 acres on the south side of, the north side of Conner Road and the remainder on the north side of the road. And then we have nobody in this room here that's part of council. That's heard these auctions, right?
So the
And
bylaw already says this can't happen
Okay.
unless you come back. So you would be going through as we are today, and they're saying we want to have an abattoir or we want to build a new house.
okay,
And council would have to, planning staff would go back and say, well, in 2026,
okay.
you agreed to, no.
No, I appreciate.
And you bought the property knowing.
No, I appreciate.
Okay.
No, you understand why I'm asking these questions,
Yeah, yeah.
this group today, because this is, you know, like I said, the grid home, the special zoning, all the changes, right? And then going back to the rural residential and these 3 signs that are posted. I didn't see that one, I guess I wasn't really looking for it, that's why I asked, but the special residential special. I guess is that it's when I went to the land division meeting, it was there to support it. Because there were some errors that were made originally in the planning layout. Because it went further than what the defined area was to be severed. So that was corrected, I agreed, okay, it's corrected, good job. But I was guess there were that special rural residential. You're changing terms in there that, you know, I just didn't know what would happen, right? So I understand there's process, it's kind of provincially legislated, correct? I get this, and you're just following those mandates. But I guess I'll stop there, and if anybody has any questions, I'll take them, just because I need clarity on this, right?
Okay, so under the special rural residential, there's two requests. If I understand, Laurel, correct me if I'm wrong. One is that the lot isn't quite as deep, instead of being 88 or 60. The other is that the house could potentially be used for a group home. Those are the two requests.
Yes, that is correct.
And that's just on the rural residential. The rest of the land, the special says, thou shalt not build an additional house here.
That is
Unless you tear down the one that's there and you could rebuild it.
correct.
So there's kind of two issues here. All right, any questions from council? Council, yes.
Did I understand correctly, Laurel, that the request for a group home is as of right?
Through you, Mayor Mayberry, on group homes are currently permitted on A2, A1, institutional and R1 zones. Because the lot is being rezoned to RR, it's not permitted as of right. So they would have to add, so if they hadn't severed that off, a group home is permitted as of right on that property, on any A1, A2, R1 or I property in the township. There's no planning application required to establish a group home on those properties, but because they're rezoning to RR, they do require special provision to permit that.
For council, yes, no, go ahead.
Thank you. To the applicants then, can you describe to us the nature of the group home and who might be operating it?
Yeah, well, we were approached by a potential buyer. And they felt if we could get this into it, it would give them the opportunity to place a bid on the property. But as far as the group home, I'm gonna turn it over to my wife. She's got all more details on what they were actually looking for.
So the company that's looking to perhaps purchase it is a children's respite company. So they're not, how do I start this? The provincial government says group home, and as Jeff pointed out, it could mean 10 different things. Their intent is to be a respite home and have 2 children in the home at a time, maximum. And the house would be staffed 24 hours a day. And it would be short term. It would be for respite care from the family. For kids with special needs and family needs a break, this is the place that they go to. The next process in that to become the group home that you're speaking of, or that comes up in the definition. You have to go through MCS, Ministry of Community Social Services, and there's a very large application and process to become a group home that houses 8 or 10 people. And there's a lot of different steps that would have to take on a provincial level that they would have to meet. They're not interested in doing that. And the umbrella is large, it covers a lot of things, but there are many more steps to be able to make it a group home where drug addicts and criminals and whatever can live. That is not the intent of this company. And as Laura said, it already can be that a group home. This particular one, they're just looking at respite for children. That's it.
Okay. Any other questions from council? Recognizing, Kelly, that, this company buys today and tomorrow they can sell it and, the zoning stays with the farm, it doesn't change, so that's, hence the concern of neighbors and, council.
But keep in mind, I could turn my own house into a group home.
No,
And the zoning's already there, like Laurel said, if we can sever it, the zoning's already there.
I know, I'm not, in any, trying to argue, I'm just saying,
Oh,
that's the end of the
Yeah, I'm
argument.
just saying what I heard.
Yeah. Any other questions? Council Perry?
So could we limit the number of bedrooms
In the bylaw?
Say it's just approved,
what the bylaw will say, it's just.
Go ahead,
You,
Paul.
Mayor Mayberry. So a group home in the township bylaw is 3 to 10 people. Anything in that range requires that a group home is a permitted use. The way the draft bylaw has been structured is that the maximum number of bedrooms is currently 4, because that's what the septic system will support. For either a dwelling or a group home for any use. If council wishes, they could limit the group home use to 3 bedrooms or 2 bedrooms. Well. They could limit the group home use. Yeah. I don't know if that is something.
So within the bylaw, you can limit it to 2 bedrooms, for
Correct.
example.
Well, that's what I'm suggesting, sure.
Okay,
Or until something's done with the septic system. Like in the event that they wanted to add a bedroom, they wouldn't get a building permit until the septic was upsized, replaced.
if the bylaw says you can only have 2 bedrooms, they can have all the bedrooms they want, they still can only have 2 bedrooms. How
Sure.
about this one?
Can I ask one more question? Or is it
Go ahead, sir.
So I guess if we're having that didn't go through and you had, what Kelly's explained with the process that they're looking to have. How is outside of council and the bylaws, how would this be? I guess supervised on a level of like legislation from, fire and all those type of things to make sure these things stay in place. Like, would that be up to the owners? To make sure there's always only 2 bedrooms occupied, or, that it doesn't become kind of like a extension, like, how would that work? Because in a residential house, you're allowed to have so many people. Like, your family can only have so many people living in that house based on a fire bylaw, you just can't turn a basement into a bedroom because there's not the fire escape regulations. I'm just curious how that would be modified based on the comments I just heard.
Okay, Laurel. your
Through
comment.
you, Mayor Mayberry, Jeff, there are very strict requirements to obtain a license for a group home. And I believe that maintaining that license also requires checks to ensure that they're meeting their requirements. And I believe that licenses have to be renewed on an annual basis, so if they're not meeting their requirements, they would not. That's my understanding of the process, I'm not an expert in that, but I believe that there is both a process and a number of checks and balances to ensure they're meeting their responsibilities.
Other questions? Comments? Counselor,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one comment, that the only part about this that makes me uneasy is your comment earlier about just because company A buys this place today doesn't mean company B doesn't come along and change the purpose of it 10 years from now, right? So that's what causes me hesitation here. Otherwise, I would have no trouble supporting it.
and I think that's where Counselor, I'm not trying to put words in Counselor Frederic's mouth, but I think that's what he was doing, he was saying, okay, let's limit it to 2 bedrooms. And if somebody wants 3 bedrooms or 4 bedrooms or whatever, they have to come back to council and get the zoning bylaw changed. I'm not arguing for or against it, there's other comments.
But how do you limit it? It's considered rural residential, right? Special, and that house that is existing now has only so many bedrooms in it. But then somebody buys it, they say the proposed company that Corey and Kelly are speaking to. And they make it a 3 bedroom, or they make it whatever, how does that fall into what the counselor just mentioned, like, how does that? I'm just trying to understand that, like, how does that, like, the one counselor mentioned, limited to 2 bedrooms. Like, how, if you build a house that's got 4 bedrooms, how do you control after that fact, right?
So generally, bylaws are enforced when we get complaints from neighbors saying that, there's only.
Up to you, Jeff.
No, that's generally the way it happens, but I don't know if, Laura, you wanna make any comments on
Yeah,
that?
through you, Mayor Mayberry, again, Jeff, there would be specific zoning applied to the property, so anyone looking at the property in the future, if they wanted to purchase it, they would look at that specific zone and they would probably call me or call Dan and say, what does this mean? And then staff would would explain that the bylaw means, you know, you can have this, you can have this, you know, maximum of this. And I think the management of that would be two-part. It would be the people who license a group home would make sure that they're adhering to what they're allowed to do on that property, because they would also need to copy it. Because having the correct zoning is part of obtaining a license. And also, as Kelly said, it is up to, we enforce bylaws on a complaint basis. There's, so if people are complaining, staff, no, if people are commenting and requests that staff look into it, staff would go out and investigate the questions and the issues. So it's on a two-part basis.
So what I'm hearing from you is that the licensing is stated it's gonna be a 2-bedroom operation. And that's what they would have to adhere to. Am I hearing that correctly?
That's what I believe. I'm not an expert in group home licenses, but I know that to get a license, the zoning of the property has to permit a group home.
And if I may, their funding depends on following the bylaws. So if they're doing things out of line, they're not gonna get the funding from the government.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Councilor Gibbon.
So we've been focused on the group home aspect of this application. If we put restrictions on the number of bedrooms allowed to be used on this, and it ends up being sold to just somebody that wants a rural residence, do those same restrictions apply so that if person A comes in with their 6 kids, they're no longer allowed to bid on that house because they won't fit within the parameters that we've put on it through the bylaw?
Laurel?
Through you, Mayor Rayberry, thank you for the question. In the draft bylaw, the specific bedrooms it's under the category provisions for a group home. So those two things are tied together, not as a use as a single detached dwelling.
Any other questions? Councilor Gillis.
Just a comment, I feel like we're getting a little bit lost in the weeds of what if and what could and whatever compared to what's being presented here today. I think that, you know, I don't really have a problem with what's being asked, presented forward. You know, tomorrow doesn't come to certain people sometimes, so like, I think there's a lot of what ifs, and I think it's focusing on what's being asked and whether we approve it or not. I think the zoning was allowed before, the zone change amendment. And it could happen at any other residence up and down that road. So I don't have a problem with approving.
Councilor Gibbon, seconded. Oh, we're not quite there yet. So, any other comments, questions? Councilor Wade.
Kind of echo Councilor Gillis' comments. We're here to approve what's in front of us. We can't predict what's gonna happen 10, 12 years down the road. And that's out of our, we have no control. Who's gonna, what this property is gonna be in 10, 12 years, like. If you know what it's gonna be in 12 years, you're a very smart person. But we don't know that, so.
Oh, I appreciate that, but I do appreciate what the last 3 councilors have said. But people are the taxpayers, right? And we have a say in a lot of the things, and I'm surprised there's not more people here today. Be like this, like, I know those people, but I don't think what was just said should be dismissed to the fact that the what ifs, because as Laurel has said, it's gonna be up to me as a single entity, if that got out of hand, to say, who's coming to take care of this? Right? So with those 3 last comments made, and whatever your decision is, I can't come knocking at this council's door in a month at the next meeting, the next open session for the public, and stomp my feet. I'm gonna have to go through the law or go through somebody like that if it did something got really, I'm not saying will get out of hand. But that's the whole purpose of these meetings, and people have their word. So to miss the what, sorry, Mr. Mayberry.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
But to dismiss the old words I may have and the what ifs that are being used back at me isn't really, I feel very professional in the fact that I vote every time there's a vote. I put people in the place that I vote for, that it's in my ward, right? So in that aspect, I don't think the what ifs are never something that we should dismiss. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, so there's a couple of things there. First of all, as individuals, everyone has the right to call the township and say, I think there's a problem with the bylaw. Would you send a bylaw enforcement officer out and CAO to make sure that that happens? So it's not like you have to go and get a lawyer or anything like that. The simple part, just, and not, that's just in general. And I think that, council does consider, everyone, on the road. That's part of the role, try and respect everybody's, opinions and ideas, and sometimes they differ. The challenge is when one person wants to do one thing on their property, and someone else says, no, you shouldn't be able to, because it's gonna affect me. And so you end up, and I, quite frankly, I'm incredibly glad that I live in a country where we actually do have property rights. And we have the ability to do things or not do things. Even though occasionally government steps in the way and changes the rules on it. But anyways, having said that, we're now done the public meeting. It is now time to go back to council and, we need, a decision on this and then the bylaw.
Yeah.
So, need a motion on the application, by Rodley Farms. Moved by Way, seconded by Gillis, and the motion would be,
To approve the zone change application submitted by Robley Farms. As printed.
application, are you limiting the, number of bedrooms?
I would say no.
Councilor Gillis, are you agreeing that? Okay, that's the motion on the floor, that, there's no limit to the, 4 bedrooms that the land can currently use, or that the septic systems currently. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none. Councilor Gillis, Rebecca?
Well, I like the 2-bedroom idea, but it's not included in the motion, so there's an amendment at this point.
You can amend it,
Let's vote on an amendment to limit it to 2.
so you're making an amendment to, you have a seconder for the amendment? I would say. Okay, so we have an amendment. 2, any discussion on the amendment? We're only discussing 2 versus 4. Any comments?
The house only has 3 bedrooms. Isn't it?
No, that's not what's allowed in
Sorry.
the, bylaw. 2 versus 4. Potential of 4.
We're talking 6 versus 8 people.
We're actually talking the zone, the amendment was zone, or was bedrooms. So I'm not gonna talk about people, because I don't know how many that is, so. The amendment, any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, this could be interesting. All those in favor of the amendment of 2? Those opposed? So the amendment, the motion is now that the application for zone change consists of 2 bedrooms, limited to 2 bedrooms. Any discussion on the original motion as amended? Seeing none, all those in favor of the original motion? Opposed, that's carried. The bylaw will be passed today as amended.
That'll be passed. Notice will go tomorrow.
Notice goes out tomorrow, sorry. And then there is how many day appeal period? 20-day appeal period from when the notice is mailed out. Okay? Anyone can appeal, and if you want to appeal, you talk to the clerk or the CEO. Hey, I thought it was only residential.
Zoning bylaw amendments can be appealed by the municipality.
Or only by the municipality, the applicant, or the province?
Through you, Member Gary, the clerk has a list of who can appeal.
Okay, okay.
So, appeals can happen by the municipality, the applicant, public utilities, the telecom, gas, hydro, railways. Local boards, school boards and hospitals. If they're notified. So. If a hospital is notified, let's just move it.
This is residential area. Only,
Don't even know notice,
period.
period. Can be appealed by the municipality,
Okay,
master.
that's good enough. I thought only certain residential ones are restricted. Okay, Learn something new every day. All right, sorry. There is, only the applicants, the township or the ministry gonna appeal it.
Yeah.
Okay, for all intents and purposes for this one, okay. Sorry about that. No further discussion. We'll move on to the next thing. The notice will go up tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're now down to Meredith. Oh, you want to do the zoning bylaw, okay. The mover and second, the zoning bylaw, moved by Governor, second by Wade. And the first, second, third reading goes.
Resolved that the following bylaw be read first, second, and third, time and finally passed, bylaw 30 of 2026. A bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 25-98. For the file 7/4/2515, 564 Everett Road.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Okay. Now we're down to Meredith. Meredith, can you give me a 2-minute break? I have to be right back. Full people.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, we'll get introduced.
So for example, if you think a farm operation can also be a tourism attraction. Or a user is also a tourism attraction. So tourism can have a large impact on our communities and help diversify the economy when other traditional industries are in decline. When we talk about tourism in Oxford County, go to the next slide. Yeah, perfect, thank you. For tourism trends, we regularly monitor those on a regular basis, including a variety of channels. But Destination Canada is an excellent resource for us as well. It talks about the different types of visitors that we have as Canadians and what we like when we travel. But what we're seeing is people are still looking for those curated, slowing down activities. Multi-generational travel is still very popular, and we see that Cheese Trail in particular. Canadians were really interested in unique, novel, fun activities. That's one thing that carries across for the majority of Canadians when they're traveling. And we want to connect with our loved ones, and we also want to connect with ourselves and slow down and try some new activities. Nature is very important, getting out on trails, being out on open farmland, being in parks. Those are all things that are appealing, is being out in green space. And also for Canadians, the visitor segments are the most desirable ones, all over segmented, interested in sustainable travel. They want to have a positive impact on where they're visiting. They want to visit places that care about being a welcoming environment, caring about the community, and caring about the environment and sustainability. So for the next slide, we have our stats on visitation to Oxford County. These look at trips, so these are overnight visits to Oxford County, whether you're staying with friends and family, you're camping, or you're at a hotel. That's over 1.3 million trips to Canada in 2025. We actually experienced an increase, particularly in Canadian visits last year compared to 2024. US trips stayed relatively constant at about 0.22% increase, although we do see variation increases in some communities for American visitors over others. But what we are seeing when we look at the US travel is we're expecting the decrease is in the area of business travel. Just seeing that nights for the trips are shorter, and typically business trips are 2 to 3 days at least. When we talk about the tourism product in Oxford County on the next slide, we've got several key themes for the area. The first being Tour Oxford, which is our program that is promoting people getting out, whether by car, by bike, or by foot, and exploring our communities. We have a lot of smaller attractions that are in very close proximity to each other. So we actually designed a tourism product to help people, we say, spend less time driving, more time having fun. So we've paired areas up with nearby stops, and we call it Your Next Stop. So we have one called Southern Slowdown in Southwest Oxford, and it gets people out to several stops within the township that are in close proximity to each other. And the businesses are partners and work together on promoting this route with us. Also, cycling is something that we're very passionate about in Oxford County, and the cyclists appreciate the respect our drivers have for them, our Share the Road campaigns, and they appreciate the beautiful scenery in small towns and villages that they can pass through and visit. Experiential tourism is also something that is continuing to grow for consumers, and we do have a wealth of it here in Oxford County. For instance, that could get you out to the Beachville Museum, where you can make a baseball like they would use in the 1800s, or enjoy Victorian quilting, or churn butter like they used to in the old-fashioned days. Those are activities where people get a greater appreciation for the place they're visiting and its stories. So it's a fantastic opportunity for tourism. Wellness and outdoors, of course, with the passion for people being in nature. Those are areas that are growing. And of course, we have a great example of the wellness component with the Oxford Hills and its Nordic spas and spa treatments on site. And of course, culinary tourism continues to thrive. We've continued our partnership with the Oxford County Federation of Agriculture on Oxford Fresh, which is our buy local map with a new issue just arriving in our office yesterday. And then, of course, the Oxford County Cheese Trail, which is a partnership of over 30 businesses that are celebrating our dairy past and present, offering opportunities for people to come and explore their locations, whether they're trying a new cheese, going for a tour, or booking one of those unique experiences. So we did approve the tourism 5-year plan last year, and that vision for that is a vibrant tourism destination that contributes to Oxford County's economic, social, and environmental well-being. So it's not tourism growth at any cost, but it's tourism growth that supports the desires of the community and supports the businesses, and then also provides a strong experience for the visitors. And in that realm, with our three key areas, first being destination management, then secondly is product development, and third is marketing. So if we look at our results over the past year, first of all, in the area of destination management, we did wrap up our tourism growth program. That was a fund that we received from FedDev Ontario, Southern Ontario. And with that, we wrapped up the Your Next Stop program, adding 3 new routes. We have a total of 6 routes now in that program. Also, we always look for opportunities to work together. So we invested a total of 55,000 into a variety of activities, such as marketing, photography. And then what happens is those funds get matched by other organizations to do activities. So for example, 2 partners coming in to complete photography, or us being a small partner on a very large marketing campaign with Destination Ontario plus our Regional Tourism Association. And then of course, grants and other opportunities as well. We also launched a brand new website, like on a new platform for tourism, and that improved customer service for residents, businesses, and visitors. So businesses can now maintain their own content on the Tourism Oxford website, which wasn't available previously. And then in the long run, this is going to reduce some of the pressures on the tourism team as demand and need grows. And then for consumers, they're now able to filter listings based on services available at businesses, what's open on a Sunday, for example, which can sometimes be a challenge. And even narrow down trails by length of distance, etc. When it comes to product development, we're continuing to work with the businesses and support them in developing product that is, supporting tourism in the area, and of course meeting the needs of visitors. So as mentioned, Your Next Stop was wrapped up last year. We continue to hold training and networking events. So for example, we launched Hospitality Talks last year, which encourages hoteliers and other tourism attractions to come out with us and visit a variety of destinations to know what's available in their own backyard, so they can refer individuals to it. And that program's been very popular. And the Oxford Tourism Innovation Grant continues with 3 funding partners, and that include Rural Oxford, including Futures Oxford, and every year 3 grants of $3,000 are issued to support businesses in developing new innovative tourism products. But we actually have increased the number of recipients for 2026. And when it comes to marketing, we had 7 million marketing impressions last year. Obviously, that is due in part to participating in some very large campaigns with Destination Ontario. And we also did enter into the US with a marketing partnership to test the waters there as well. Media continue to have an interest in the area, with us having many more media stories than we were necessarily forecasting. And we have had to pull back on our time spent reaching out to media, so to see that engagement is excellent. And then also we launched our Tour Oxford campaign, where the OUR is a different color and the taglines have changed. This campaign, its purpose is to speak to local residents and make them aware of everything that they have to do here, because about 50% of the visitors coming to the area approximately are visiting friends and family. So when their friends and family visit, we want them to know what's available in their backyard. We want people to embrace their place and be proud of where they're living. We also started surveys last year. And while we have done business surveys in the past, this was a new approach where we launched 3 surveys. One was for business, one was for residents, and one was for visitors. And through that, we were able to gather a variety of information, and a more detailed report will be released shortly. But to give you a couple highlights, we were seeing that consumer habits last year were definitely impacting the businesses, but some in a positive way. So agritourism businesses were seeing a bit more of consumer behavior changes being a positive impact, while some other sectors were reporting a bit of a decrease. So if you think like retail, restaurant, etc. Also, we rated, had them rate their satisfaction tourism services with 85%. Tourism, 8 out of 10, 8+ out of 10, for a rating of satisfaction. Also, we were able to learn about what businesses are doing to support their community. And we were seeing percentages taking 3 or more actions to provide a welcoming environment. So that's ensuring everybody feels welcome and demonstrating that at a location which really resonates with visitors, as you will see in an upcoming slide. Celebrating and supporting local culture, so the arts, heritage, etc., and then supporting local natural environment. For the visitor survey, we were seeing the key times that we see in our other data as popular times to visit, because these numbers do represent people coming more than once. So people could be coming repeatedly. Also, they're very likely to return and they're likely to recommend friends and family visit. And their level of satisfaction is giving a score of 8 out of 10. Importance of where they're visiting having a positive impact on the destination. So 77%, they do want to have that positive impact where they're visiting. They want to support small businesses. They want to see and support businesses that are looking at sustainability, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So they're wanting to be part of the positive impact on our communities. With the resident survey, 73% were, recommending friends and family visit Oxford County for things to do. And what's a very positive number is the 84% get a rating of 8+ out of 10. Desirable place to visit, and they have a positive feeling towards the tourism industry in their community. So that means that the tourism industry is providing the service and support for the local residents that they're looking for. They're seeing it as a positive impact on the community. So for the 2026 business plan, we're going to be doing a project in partnership with Oxford County Archives to support people coming to the area to research their genealogy. So that's basically working together to get the details out to help people plan those genealogy visits. We're also continuing to do work in the area of sustainable travel, educating businesses about resources available to support them with that work. And then we're also launching a new product called Handcrafted Routes. So on the next slide, it tells a little bit more about this program. So this is a tourism route that will help people appreciate, create items, and be inspired with handcrafted arts in Oxford. So that includes going to a museum and learning about how things were traditionally made, or seeing, a heritage home with some of its architectural elements. It could be, learning to do a Victorian quilting panel, for example, at the Beachville Museum. It has people visiting local artists and possibly purchasing their goods. It's also people visiting galleries to learn and appreciate the art. But it's also for people that make the handcrafted items themselves. So for example, potters coming to the area, painters, woodworkers, fiber artists, and purchasing supplies at local retailers, because we do have some interesting niche businesses in that realm in Oxford County. But it's also people that are curious and want to learn, whether they are passionate or it's their first time. We already have retreats coming to the area. We're hoping to see those continue to grow. And then people coming for classes and events at our various arts and culture institutions and with the artisans themselves. So I also like to end by saying, we're very eager to work with municipalities and we appreciate the support that we provide. To keep in mind that we do data collection on a variety of matters related to tourism through data partnerships. And we appreciate if you've got connections for us to reach out to new potential businesses opening in the area that might want to learn a bit more about the tourism industry. And we're always receptive to partnerships, but most of all, we appreciate your investing in vibrant communities that draw people to them and celebrate the local stories. So that's an update from tourism. Thank you very much for your time, and I'm happy to take any questions that you have.
Okay, thanks very much, Meredith. Any questions for Meredith? No, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Meredith, you mentioned in one of your earliest slides, multi-generational travel. How would you define that?
Through the mayor. So multi-generational travel is parents with their children and then the grandparents, for example, coming out for a day, or aunts and uncles. And we see, for example, and since we were originally surveying when we launched the Cheese Trail, we'll have family groups of aunts and uncles and their children, and then the other family and their children or grandparents, and they come out for like a mystery fun day to explore the area. We've actually seen that occurring. So what's interesting now is some Gen Z, for example, or the younger generation even, they actually have quite a bit of influence on where families go for travel. And grandparents often want to come along as well at times. So it's an interesting demographic. And it's a positive thing to see happening in the community that are making memories together.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Councilor Perry.
Meredith, we appreciate the partnership we have with you as well, certainly through Rhonda, Stewart and Crystal. Just wanted a quick question on the 7.4 million marketing impressions. How's that calculated?
Through the mayor. So the impressions, those are a mix of when we know the circulation of a publication for a traditional publication. But then it's primarily for digital advertising, and the software for digital advertising tells you how many times it's been seen. So how many times it presented it. So the bulk of that is digital. We typically aim for like 1 to 3 million impressions a year, but like last year we participated in several Destination Ontario campaigns. We will see a decrease in that this year because we'll be taking different tactics. Where some of those ads, we were simply part of a landing page and the results we got were excellent. But we're going to be trying to push people more directly to our page and itineraries for being ready to go and visit. So less about awareness of visitors, but more about them actually taking action and visiting. So it's a great number, but there's different ways of looking at advertising as well.
Any other questions? Councilor Wade.
Just a quick question. What is the Oxford Gravel Raiders?
So there is, through the mayor, there is a segment of cyclists who love gravel road riding.
Okay.
And actually the Paris to Ancaster, which is the kickoff for the season, road ride for people that like gravel, actually comes through Blanford Blenheim as part of that ride. And that's actually a national sanctioned race now, I believe, at least it was 2 years ago for an Olympic qualifier. But yeah, so the gravel roads actually they're an asset. And cyclists do enjoy going out and doing it. They have specialized bikes. And we do have routes throughout Oxford County for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
There's no potholes in those gravel roads. Any other questions? Thanks very much, Meredith, for being here. To Councilor Gibbons' comment about intergenerational or multi-generational, we'll very soon, Councilor Gibbons, realize that grandparents are welcome to come, especially if they bring a credit card or a debit card. And I have found personally that I've been more welcome in the last few years than I've ever thought of that. So, thanks very much, Meredith. We'll appreciate you being here. So, okay. We now need to move to closed session. The motion to move in closed session and here's it. Moved by Gillis, second by Wade. And the motion would read.
Resolved by council moving to closed session at 10:48 AM. Pursuant to section 239(2)(c) and I of the Municipal Act in order to discuss matters pertaining to the proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, and a trade secret or scientific, technical, commercial, financial, or labor relations information supplied to confidence to the municipality or local board, which if disclosed could reasonably be expected to prejudice significantly the competitive position or interfere significantly with the contractual or other negotiations of official persons or